Democratic Party is still figuring out its way forward to win back voters. While the Democratic consulting class is pitching ideas behind closed doors, mainstream media is openly warning them. Here is CNN's Abby Phillip strong advice to Dems. Let's watch.
They're going to have to get rid of some sacred cows, okay? Yep. This is going to be the hard part. Everybody talks about authenticity until the rubber meets the road and they have to actually take positions that the activist, consultant class base does not want them to take.
I don't think they will.
Some Democrats have slammed their party's initiatives aimed at winning back men. One of these initiatives is called Operation Sam. It is a $20 million effort that will include studying language and content that goes viral in male-dominated spaces, and also buying ads in video games. James Carville told The Bulwark in a recent interview, people lose sight of the fact that politics is by and large a candidate-driven enterprise. But it is a democratic article of faith that enough expertise and enough dollars can solve any problem, up to and including authenticity.
Andrew Yang, who ran an unsuccessful campaign for the 2020 Democratic primary nomination, told The Bulwark, the Democrats don't have a messaging problem so much as a leadership problem. Who speaks for the Democratic Party? No one knows. They can't resolve that, so they do what they know how to do. Spend money on consultants.
Plenty to discuss there, Amber. Let me firstly do a rare thing on Rising, which is praise someone at CNN. I thought that Abby Phillip made an excellent point there, actually, which was that there is this tendency to talk in these very nebulous terms. Oh, we have to be authentic, we have to connect with people. And then, do people really want that? Because authenticity often requires making people comfortable or saying things that are not sort of focus group approved. And I thought she made a really valid point there that if you follow through on that, you're going to propose things that at least make some elements of the Democratic coalition uncomfortable.
Also, if you're doing a $20 million anthropological study of American men, and then you pull some tidbits from that study and start speaking authentically, are you really being authentic?
Right.
No, obviously not.
I have studied the syntax of men, and I've decided I'm going to adopt it.
It literally sounds like an alien spaceship, landed in the U.S. and said, if we are to win, we have to get American man. How do they speak?
Well, it is the equivalent. I mean, I remember, this is going back a long time now, but it was when Hillary Clinton was running, I think when she was running against Obama, in the Democratic primary, she gave a speech to a black audience where she dropped the G off every word, and it was so...
We ain't no ways tired.
It was so bad. Yeah. And so you do get into that sort of thing of it's just like, oh, that's kind of crazy.
I also find it interesting that the name of the project is Speaking to American Men when it should be Listening to American Men. And I think that is one of the fundamental problems with the modern Democratic Party, which is, well, it's not that our policies are not accepted by the voters. It's not that we have a branding problem or a leadership problem. It's that we don't massage the message the right way so the voters understand what we're really selling. And it is a kind of way of infantilizing and discrediting, I think, the intelligence of voters and their ability to figure out through your ads, campaigns, and your messaging what it is you actually want to do. Maybe you should actually speak to the voters and hear what they want from the Democratic Party instead of sort of foisting on this top-down model.
Yeah. Yes, basically. I mean, I do think messaging matters in politics, and I think the way of framing an issue matters. I do take the criticism of the Democratic Party that there are certain issues, you and I have talked about the trans issue, for example, before, where, trans people in sport particularly, I think that is something that the Democratic Party has got out of step with voters on. There are... I've made this point before also, there are economic proposals, increasing the minimum wage, for example, that have fairly significant public support. And so is there a way of framing a message that basically accentuates your strengths and minimizes your weaknesses? I think that is a completely valid political project. I also think that there is a tendency in politics broadly to always sort of overstate the extent to which the nation has swung one way or swung the other. Donald Trump did win the popular vote for the first time of his 3 elections this time around. He prevailed in the popular vote by about 1.5 percentage points. it was enough to win the Electoral College. That is seen by most Democrats and Liberals as a cataclysm. But, you know, I remember when George W. Bush won re-election and Democrats thought they were, you know, finished forever. I remember when Obama won re-election and there was this idea that the emerging Democratic majority was going to ensure Democratic wins in perpetuity. We're in fact a very finely divided nation, and, you know, Kamala Harris still got many, many millions of votes, and it's not, I don't think that the evidence really suggests there is this absolutely cataclysmic, we must throw everything out, otherwise we'll never get elected again.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say that going into the midterms, the Democrats have a stronger hand than the Republicans,
Right.
despite all of the infighting. But what is more interesting to me in terms of the reason we're talking about this as a sort of cataclysmic change is the issue breakdown. Not even the Trump versus Kamala breakdown, but the breakdown on immigration, economy, crime, gender issues, even just cultural issues like freedom of speech or thought policing or language policing, things of that nature that are maybe not as easily identifiable in a poll, but clearly, especially among American men, they have great distaste for. So until the Democratic Party is willing to take the 80% side of an 80-20 issue, I just don't see how a weaselly messaging campaign gets them over that hump.
Yeah, I mean, you're using terms like weaselly. I don't think there's anything particularly weaselly about the message that Bernie Sanders and AOC have been putting out, for example, in those rallies. I would argue that that is a strong message. It is often, incidentally, a message that includes some criticism of the Democratic Party. What did you say?
Yeah, I'm referring more to like David Hogg.
You're not a big David Hogg fan.
No, not really.
I mean, you think he's weaselly in what way, though?
I think that he's weaselly in that he has long been sort of emblematic of the type of thing that American men find very distasteful, which is like the DNC operative who wants to take guns and is quite feminine, really, doesn't show much masculinity, and supports a lot of the progressive Democratic policies, but then when he's tasked with changing the Democratic Party and being a young voice, all of a sudden now he's on Bill Maher talking about how he's going to win over men.
I think a lot of the opinions on David Hogg just fundamentally break down on partisan lines. I don't agree with everything he says, but I think he's a much more effective media communicator than you do. I think there's an argument about what exactly he's trying to accomplish with the threat of primarying people. He talks about a new wave of Democratic leaders, but he's also kind of nice about some very old Democratic leaders as well. So I think there's an element of strategic confusion. But you raise the issue of gun control, for example. There are, as you're well aware, widespread public support for things like universal background checks. And there are significant proportions of the country who do in fact believe that the gun control laws are too lax. So I don't see that. I think that's an issue that in my 20 plus years in the US has flipped to some extent. That it used to be a very strong Republican issue, and I don't think the data suggests it is.
Well,
anymore.
I certainly don't agree with David Hogg, though, on issues like mandatory gun buyback programs or banning AR-15s or other semi-automatic rifles. And so he goes so far beyond those issues that do have popular support on the Second Amendment and turns it into gun-grabbing programs and getting rid of the most popular rifle to ever be sold in the United States.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that the fundamental point is it being for stricter gun control, is that politically a bad or good thing? It's a good thing so long as you don't stumble over into the into the elements of that are less popular. There's a large slab of public support for stricter laws than we have at the moment.
But David Hogg has gone over that, stumbled over that hill that you're identifying. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Okay. Do we have anything else on the matter, Amber?
I think we're good.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I count me skeptical as the Dems winning back American men, but we shall see.
The pendulum shall swing in the end, Amber.
It usually does.
So.
That's going to do it for us today on Rising. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Hill's YouTube channel so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we are now available anywhere you listen to podcasts.